Hey, sorry it's been so long since I made a video. Like I said, I was in England and I just had to try and use my mom's PC and it sucked. So, I'm back home now in Hawaii, so hopefully this is all going to work good and get it all done, and you guys can carry on listening to the stuff that I have to say. And yeah, feel free, like some of you have, to keep messaging me. I hope that my responses are being helpful. Katie Kramer is being a champ as well and helping me check the paragraph titles, because I know there's stuff that I've missed that she's caught out, so thanks for that, Katie. Okay, so what I wanted to talk to you about in this video, obviously it's going to go on YouTube, so it's probably going to end up being like 10-15 minute sections. Is I'm going to go through the BRI. BRI, it stands for Basic Required Information. The whole point of the BRI is that it puts the whole book, whichever book you're studying, into a historical context. The reason behind that is that if we observe the book within its historical context, it means that when we come to interpret, we can interpret, in this case, the book of Galatians the way that Paul intended it, the way that the Galatians would have interpreted it when they first received the letter. And it helps us understand what the original hearer or the original reader was supposed to get out of the text, so that we don't come to kind of wild accusations by trying to force stuff from the 1st century AD into a 20th century mindset. The whole point of learning the inductive method, which is what we're doing, is to understand how important observation is. Observation is 90% of what we're going to talk about. The BRI in itself is observation. A lot of what we do is just observe the text. We will use exterior sources as well. Bible dictionaries. If you don't have one, it's worth getting a really good Bible dictionary. Not a commentary, that's different because that's someone else's interpretation, but a dictionary. The Nelson's Illustrated is really good. It's the one that Aaron and I used for all of our homework during our SBS. It was edited by Dr. Youngblood, who spoke in our SBS, who a lot of you will have heard of. He helped translate the NIV, which I know some of you are using. He's a really, 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 really amazingly clever man. So I felt like using a dictionary that he had a hand in would probably only benefit me. When we come to the interpretation, we're going to ask questions of the text. Who were the original readers? Why was the letter written? What in it is there specifically about their situation? What was going on in the church? Obviously in Galatians we know that it was written to a church. The church is in Galatia. What was happening at the time there? What problems were being addressed? Because often in the epistles, in the letters, there's a point where there is a problem, and that's why the letter's being written. In Galatians we'll see there's quite a major problem. And then we can ask, how would they have responded? From a Jewish mindset or a Gentile mindset, depending on the church, how would the congregation have responded to the letter? And also then we can go, what would apply to all of time? And then you take that application, that timeless truth, and then you apply it to your own life. So when you read the Bible, the last thing you do with the inductive method is say, okay, well, now what does that mean for me? What you do up to then is say, okay, what does the text say exactly? That's why I had you do the paragraph titles and the color coding, because it really helps you get a grasp on what the text is saying. And then you interpret it from the mindset of the writer, the original reader, the original hearer, and then you do the application. Okay, so the BRI, the Basic Required Information, it's made up of 4 different methods. Number 1, the critical method. Number 2, the historical method. Number 3, the literary method. Number 4, the survey method. So for this book, for Galatians, I'm going to walk you through each part. If we do another book, which if you want, I'm happy to do. I mean, it's really good for me because it means I actually have to read the notes that I took during SBS. Then you'll do a lot more of it will be self-directed, and we can do kind of like just correspondence stuff. But for this, because we're just learning the method, I'll walk you through it. So the critical method, is there are 3 questions. A, who wrote it? B, who was it written to? And C, when was it written? And within that is kind of a sub-question, so C.2, where was it written from? Sometimes that's applicable, sometimes it's not, it doesn't really matter. In this instance for Galatians, the when and the where are very much tied together because there are different theories that I'll explain in just a moment. So who wrote it? Pretty obviously we can look at it and we can say, well, it was the Apostle Paul. And again, remember, what we're doing is we're going to the text to find the answers to these. This is the inductive Bible study manual that we all got given. And in here it tells you how to do the BRI. And the important thing to do is just remember what it's asking of you in regards to when you're allowed to use internal evidence and external evidence. Internal evidence is what the Bible actually says. External is, in our case it was from the lecturer, from handouts that we were given, or from Bible dictionaries. You want to be careful when using the internet, because obviously, who's checking that? You don't 100% always know that the internet is giving you solid truth. There are some websites that I've found that have more commentaries than anything else. Obviously, don't go to Wikipedia and ask Wikipedia to interpret a book of the Bible for you. But you're smart people, so I'm sure I don't really need to say that. So, the internal evidence for who wrote the book is found in chapter 1, verse 1, Paul, an apostle. Chapter 5, verse 2, which says, listen, I, Paul, so that's twice. And then in 6, verse 11, says, see what large letters I make when I am writing with my own hand. So we can assume that because Paul's mentioned himself twice already in 1:1 and 5:2, that this is still Paul writing. It's interesting that Paul is writing with his own hand, unlike in, say, Romans, I think it's Romans 16:22, when we're told that Tertius, a scribe, is writing the letter and Paul is just dictating. So this letter is physically written by Paul. Question B, to whom was it written? We know that it was written to the churches in Galatia. Again, internal evidence, 1 verse 2 to the churches in Galatia, and then 3 verse 1, you foolish Galatians. However, there are different theories about what that means. As you can see from this map, hopefully, Galatia is quite a large area. This dark part here, this is Galatia. And then in the bottom of Galatia there are those cities, Antioch of Pisidia, Iconium, Lystra and Derbe, or Derby, depending on where you're from in the world. And those are mentioned in the book of Acts. In Acts 13 and 14, during Paul and I completely went blank. I can't remember if it's Barnabas or Silas. I'm sure it's Barnabas. I'm absolutely sure it's Barnabas, but I just want to check before I say something that's a lie. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts.